And welcome back to another episode of our Friday check-in as we walk through a complete review of fasting, how to prepare for a fast, how to get through a fast successfully, and then of course how to break the fast. And right here, you'll get to see what I'm going to eat. I've got it right here to break the fast for this week. If you've been following us this week, it's been an amazing week as we've been talking about how do we write the rules that really help us with the results? How do we get through those excuses that come in our minds while we're doing something for our health? How do we make sure that we have proof, right? Because the conversations come, the excuses come in our minds, but we have changed fundamentally who we are. And so the person that we are now living in is not the same person that we couldn't trust before. How do we make sure that the discipline that we have put in place, and discipline is not a bad word, by the way, how do we make sure that discipline, which is equivalent to structure, how do we make sure that that's taking us where we want to be? Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, go to the next level. We're creating the life we've always wanted, and we are living, that's right, y'all, we're living limitless lives. Wherever you're joining us from, whatever platform you're on right now, I'm so excited that you're here. Go ahead and drop into the comments where you're joining us from. We know we've got folks on several platforms, LinkedIn, we've got Instagram, we've got TikTok, we've got Facebook, and of course here on YouTube. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming through. Special shout out to our Accelerator members, those of you who are part of our community. We are excited that you have joined us, that you are on this path. If you've not done so yet, make sure you get in and come hang out with us. Special shout out for those of you who are watching because you saw our content at your church, your doctor's office, at one of the health fairs that we've done. Thank you for coming through. Special shout out to the folks from Atlanta Berean in Atlanta, Georgia, Riverside Chapel in Nashville, Tennessee, and of course Magazine Street Temple in Louisville, Kentucky in the house. And then of course, wherever you are right now, if you are joining us from another country, and I know we've got some folks who watch us from other places, thank you for coming through and being in this space with us. We are a little early in our discussion today as we talk about our fasting, and we are right at 71-ish hours. 71-ish hours. I've got an appointment with my ophthalmologist coming up here in just a little while. So we are a little early as we talk about our fasting today. And of course, we've got some interesting things that we're going to look at. I've got my monitors off to the side. Boom. And then we've got the clarity report, which you'll see right below me. And just as I was about to go live, my monitor, my Freestyle Libre went out right there. So I thought what we'll do is while we're on air, I'll go ahead and change this and we'll see what those numbers show up. We'll take a look at the others here in just a minute so that we can continue that process. All right, so why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and let's change the sensor right now, and then we'll get into the rest. That way we can get the sensor working. So I'm gonna go over here. Let's see, let's do this view. Maybe this one. Okay, there you go. All right, so here's my sensor. And I'm gonna go ahead and take it out of the box. And it looks like, for those of you who've not seen this before, it basically looks like a big screw, right? Actually, why don't I do this? Hey, this is even better. Let's go over here. Get these off. And so it looks like a big screw. And you basically screw this apart. Right? And so right in there is where the sensor is. Right? You should be able to see that. Let me see if I can make that a little bit clearer. Let's see, what can I do? Well, that's what we've got so far, right? So there it is. And if I come back here, right? So this is what it looks like. Let me cover my eyes so you can see that. There you go. Boom, there you are. Okay. And what I'm going to do, so I have two. I have a Dexcom on one side, and of course I've got the Freestyle on the other side. And this is a little disc, and I'm actually surprised that it went out because I just changed this. So I'm not sure what happened. Maybe I dislodged it while I was sleeping. But it basically comes off like a Band-Aid. So just pull that off. Like a Band-Aid. Boom, like a Band-Aid. And so all the Band-Aid-like things are there. Right? And right now I don't have any alcohol to clean that area, but it's going to be okay. All right, so right there, so that's off. And then I'll take this one, and it's basically spring-loaded. So find a spot, and I'll try not to get the same spot, and basically press it in. Ooh, and that hurt, so I think maybe I put it in a little slanted, but that's okay. All right, so we got that in. And now let's get back to the app. And in the app, well, let me do one thing before I do that. All right, here we are. So it's going to say start new sensor. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that. So would you like to start a new sensor? Yes. It's next. Hit the button. And then scan new sensor. And I'm essentially going to take this and just hold it up. And it says ready to scan. Right? And ready to scan. Right? And I'm not sure why it's asking me to do that 3 times. Okay. Scan new sensor. Come on. Okay. Scan complete. Well, and there it is again. Yeah, this is what happened with the last one. Okay, so sensor starting up. Okay, so it says now in 60 minutes we'll get our first reading from the sensor. Now if I go back here, yeah. So if you see that, so that was when I changed it. I put a new one on, and it was working for a little bit, and then it stopped. So we'll see what that shows as we get through the show. All right, so that's what my sensor is saying for my Libre. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to hop over and let's take a look at what my Dexcom is saying. Now, before I do that, let me do one additional thing, right? Because one thing that I didn't talk about was, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, or those of you who are coming back to watch us on the YouTube channel, you'll notice that we've made a few changes and streamlined the process a little bit, so that when you get there, you'll see now 2 playlists. One is called right there, Start Here, Reverse Diabetes and Reclaim Your Health with Dr. Dwain Woode. And that is a list of a curated list of the videos that we've done that are teaching the things that we do, right? So what are the pillars? What's the platform? What are the mile markers? What are the concepts that you need to be walking through? And that will be there in that Start Here playlist. There's a PDF you can download if you go to dwainwoodemd.com, or if you actually go into the description of that playlist, you'll see a PDF that you can download that allows you to walk through, and it walks you through the videos, what you should be getting, some exercises that you can do. At the end of that, there is the Limitless Living commitment statement, where you get to sign it and date it and say, hey, I'm committed to doing some things for my health. That is an amazing thing. I recommend that you download it, that you print it out, that you sign it, that you date it, put it in a frame, put it on your wall. It just reminds you on a daily basis of what you are committing to. And then the next playlist is this week's videos, or this week's videos on Limitless Living with Dr. Dwain Woode. And this is this is a list of videos that we're doing right now. Okay, what are we doing right now? What are the conversations we're having? And that walks you through what's been going on this week. Okay? All right, so I wanted to do that just to remind you. And then now let's go ahead and let's hop back over to look at my monitor. And so right now we're waiting for the Libre to warm up. All right, so 57 minutes. So we just made that change right now as we went live. with you actually. And so let's go ahead and let's take a look at what my Dexcom is saying. So my Dexcom right now is saying right there, let's see, where is it? Right there. The Dexcom is saying that my blood sugar is 95 and steady. And then if I scroll down here, I can see what the graph is showing. And so for the last, let's look at this. This is the last 12, let's go to 24 hours. So for the last 24 hours, let's kind of scroll through and put my finger there. So 99, low 100s into the 90s. And this is, you know, the last 24 hours. 80s and 90s, 80s and 90s. That was last night when we did our show. And then coming into this morning, low 100s, 90s. Popped up right there, about 123. Oh, let's go some more. Okay, here we are. 90s, 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 100. So low 100, okay, but dropping back down into the 90s. So you see it's straddling 90s to 100s. And we are now, like I said, 71 plus hours into this week's fast. All right, so I love that. And let's go ahead, and since we don't have the Libre right now, let's go ahead and take a look at what's been going on with my blood sugars as it according to my Keto Mojo and according to my Contour. So for this, let me go ahead and grab our container. And here I need to get a brown one for blood sugars and a blue one for ketones. I need strips for the Contour right here. And then, of course, I need some Lancets. I only really need one, but I always get two just in case. All right, so let's get this out. This is for the Contour. Get that back in there. Okay, and then I'm going to open up this one. And this is the strip for the Keto Mojo for the blood sugar. Get that into that monitor. And then I'm still going to open up the ketones. So what do you think my ketones are, by the way? What do you think the ketones that are going to be? So I'm going to open this one and just have it off to the side. That way I won't have to stick myself a second time. And then I'll grab my Lancet and find the finger. And there we are. Poke, 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 poke. And okay, so that was a pretty good brisk drop of blood. And we'll get that one started. Get this one started. And so 83 is what my Keto Mojo says. And let's see, Contour says that I was 73. And if I go back here so you can see, here is my Dexcom, and the Dexcom says 95. So about 10-ish points between each of them, right? And let's go ahead, before this drop dries, let's get the ketones started. So get this one in there. And all right, so go ahead and drop into the comments. What do you think ketones are going to be at this point? Get this back over here. All right. And so 3, 2, and 0.9, right? 0.9 is ketones. So about what it was yesterday. So yesterday it was 1.0. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go over here. Well, let's do this first. Let me pull up the Keto Mojo app and then get that synced. All right, so that's pulling over the data from the app there. So we got an error, so let's try again. We'll let that run. Let me get this one off the screen. All right. So it looks like it's now downloading all the data from there. So we'll need to wait there for a minute. In the meantime, let's go ahead and have a conversation. So when we talk about ketones that are 0.5, less than 0.5 considered normal, 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. So whenever we are using ketones as energy, so when would we do that? And we're putting ourselves in the ketosis. So one, when you are fasting and you're using that as a means to right your metabolism, when you're doing a ketogenic diet because you're trying to generate ketones, or you do using a fasting mimicking diet because once again, it's the whole idea of getting those ketones and the fasting process. So in those cases, we want ketones to be 0.5 or higher. So anytime we're 0.5 or higher, that means our body is burning fat and converting it into ketones because that's where ketones come from. It's from the burning of the fat. If our ketones are less than that, then that doesn't mean that something's wrong. It just means that you're not in ketosis. So if you see a low or a 0.1, or even if you see a 0, doesn't mean something's wrong with your body. It just means that right now you're not in ketosis. And most of us don't live in ketosis. We have one of our community members who seems to live in ketosis all the time, but that's just because of the diet that him and his family are doing. So they are deliberately doing that because they're using the idea of fat oxidation or beta oxidation to improve their health, their metabolism, and their weight. And so that's a good thing. So if that's what you're doing on a normal basis, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so it looks like this is done. So let's get over here, and it says it's been successful. And let's go ahead and pull that over. And so we're looking at these three numbers right here. The 5.1, that's my glucose ketone index, and then my blood sugar is 83, and ketones are 0.9. So the GKI, this one right here, the big number, is a ratio of glucose to ketones. Now, in order to do that, you have to divide the glucose by, you have to convert it. So why don't we do that? I was gonna skip that, but let's go ahead and do that right now. Let me change over to my calculator. So 83 and 0.9. So I got to remember those numbers. All right, so here we are. So here's my calculator. So 83 was my blood sugar. So if I convert that into international units and divide that by 18, and that gives me 4.6. And then I take that now and divide it by ketones, which was 0.9. And that gives me 5.1, which is the number that we have right here in the middle. Okay, so that's how you would do that. There are calculators that you can go and find on the internet that you just plug the numbers in and it gives it to you. So if you don't have an app that does that on your phone or on your computer, you can go to the internet and you can do that. Okay, so we want the GKI to be low, we want the ketones to be high, and we want the glucose to be low normal. Okay. And often I would say low, but I'm change that to say low normal, because you can have lower, which is like 7. People, I'm changing my phrase because I don't want it to confuse. So normal blood sugars are anywhere from 70 to 90, 99. That's normal. So you're not low unless you're below 70. Okay, so let's use that terminology. So below 70 is considered low. 70 to 99 is considered normal. Then the reason I was pausing there is because sometimes I'll hear people say, I'm low normal. Well, those words don't go together. You're normal, or you're low, or you're high, right? So that's it. And so you can have blood sugars that are 70, which is that lower part of the range, and we have ketones, and we can calculate our GKI. Okay, hopefully that's as clear as mud. All right, let's go over and let's take a look at my report. And here is my Dexcom Clarity report. And my 14-day average, 117, with a time and range of 98, range being anywhere from 70 to 180, and GMI, my glucose management indicator, is now 6.1. So this is where if I were to get a blood A1C, I would expect my A1C to approximate what this is, right? 6.1. I can't call it an A1C because it's a calculated number, but you get the idea. And right here, I'm going to change to the 90-day view, and my average blood sugar over the last 90 days, 115. Time and range, 98. And my GKI or GMI, glucose management indicator, is 6.1. Okay, love that, love that. If we go and look at the daily graph, see what's been going on over the last several days. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll back and go to Tuesday, because Tuesday is when we started the fast. And once again, go back and watch the show where we actually showed what we ate. So you can see what I ate, and then you can see what the blood sugars did following that. So let's trace that now, starting from the time I started my fast. So blood sugar was about 120, and going through the rest of that day, right, we stayed in the 120s, went up to about 133 there, 136, and then back down, back down, back down, and into where we are, 120, going into the next morning, and we're staying in the low 100s. Right here is what I call the toothpaste effect, so popping up to about 130s. Did we get up to 140? Doesn't look like we did. Rest of the day into the low 100s, 1-teens, then dropping down into the 90s, 80s a couple of times, but just straddling that 90-100 range. Coming into the next morning, and this is the morning that I told you that I didn't sleep well the night before, and so we'll see a little bit more fluctuation. And look at how jagged that is, right? That next morning, as we got through that day. And like I said, I went to bed right about here, about 2:30-ish, and then woke up right about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then look at that, right? So just very fluctuant. And then back down into the 80s, 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 90s. Still very, very, lots of fluctuations in there. And when I say fluctuation, I don't mean that it's high, but just the kind of waviness of that graph. And then coming into this morning, into the 80s, 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 up to about 116, and down to low 100s, 100s, 100s. And right here is my toothpaste effect, up to about 117, and then back down to where we are right now. Okay, so that is, and so when we're talking about your blood sugar and fasting, we want that to be relatively stable. Now, it would be great if it were, 80s, 90s, 70s all the time, the same thing, but it will fluctuate. And so where do you think the body gets the sugar from to make it go up and down? Well, it's burning, right? Remember, the body still has the ability to convert our fat cells into glucose, right? So remember that when we take those fat cells, we break them apart, we get the triglycerides, we cleave off the tri part, and we're left with the glycerol. Well, the glycerol becomes sugar, the fatty acids part become the ketones. All right, so now let's go ahead and let's say hello to some of our community members. And I see you guys out there, so let's pop up. And so Bowie finally caught a Friday Live for once. Hey, thanks for coming through, Bowie. And then Cornelia says, hello, Dr. Woode, LLG. I'm in Ohio. What's up, Ohio? Buckeyes. Congrats to everyone for another week of great fasting and healing. That's right. Hi, Cornelia from Bowie. Hey, Bowie, I'm glad you caught it too. I always forget the Friday Lives aren't at 9 p.m. Yeah, we do that much earlier than the 9 p.m. Did you break your fast, Cornelia? What did you eat? Cornelia says, yes, I broke it Wednesday. I did 17 hours. I had mixed nuts and Cobb salad. Oh, I love it. Cornelia was guessing, I'm assuming, 1.8. We actually were 0.9. Cornelia's asking, what about you, Bowie? Bowie says she had buffalo wings. Ooh, I got to get some of that. That sounds much better. I may have that for dinner tonight. You know what? I'm actually making some jerk chicken, but I am, let me get back over here. But I'm also thinking about, was it Steve who told us that one of the stores has jerk chicken? So I might go try some of that. All right. So let's go ahead and let's get into our conversation for today. We're talking about fasting. We're doing a review of fasting, and I love this conversation because it is such a fundamental one to what we do here and what we talk about, part of our Limitless Living Health Action Plan and so forth. So let's go ahead and let me do one thing really quickly. Let's go ahead and let's have that conversation now. All right, so fasting is a fascinating topic, and we want to couch fasting in a light that transcends most of what we think about when we think about fasting. Fasting comes with a long history, steep in cultural, religious, spiritual practices, right? That's been going on for years and years and years and years, centuries, in fact. If you go around the world, people fast for lots of different reasons. The fasting for health is not a new thing, but it has garnered lots of support because of a pandemic size issue that we continue to deal with, and that is metabolic dysfunction. In particular, it comes to light as we talk about diabetes, and particularly type 2 diabetes, because type 2 diabetes continues to devastate us as a people, as a society, as the entire globe, actually. And so diabetes continues to be what I call the prototypic metabolic disease. That is, it is the ultimate in dysfunctional metabolism. But it is not the only metabolic disease. If you trace back to our history in terms of disease, years ago, people became ill, people had mortality and morbidity because of trauma, because of infection, because of age. In other words, someone became ill because they got an infection, or they fell, or they were hit, or some traumatic, or they aged. And those were the typical reasons why people had morbidity and mortality. But fast forward now to our modern times, the things that we are having challenges with when it comes to disease processes, it's not those. We still have some of those, but for the majority of the people who are listening to me, the people who are around you in your community, at your church, in your neighborhood, it is a metabolic disease. It is things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, strokes, heart attacks, prediabetes, fatty liver, and of course, ultimately diabetes. And so the question becomes, what do we do? How do we get out from under this massive burden of disease? And the number one thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we understand what the issue is. Because if we don't understand what's going on, then we can't come up with solutions for it. And understanding it means that we've got to take an honest, open look at what's going on in our world, in our society, in our families, in our homes, in our food choices, and in what we do. So that's why when we talk about when we talk about the disease processes and what we do here, we talk about the triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and encourage. That education piece is functionally there to help us understand how the body works, understand the things that we can do to affect the body, and understand how all of that interacts so that we can make the choices that we need to make to be healthy. Education, it gives us a different perspective. It gives us a different way of looking at things. It gives us an alternate idea of how things are, because the idea that we've been running on is not completely correct. And so, as a part of that, the Limitless Living Health Action Plan that we are walking through is designed to say, how do we correct the fundamental thing that's causing the dysfunction, metabolic dysfunction, that's leading to all of these diseases? And as part of that, we are implementing, or we have implemented, what we call the Limitless Living Health Action Plan. That's the idea. And the Health Action Plan, you'll recall, is a set of pillars that we walk through. And a part of those pillars, one of those is fasting. And so fasting is a tool that sits within the platform, that sits within the journey, that sits within this list of guidelines or guardrails, if you will, that we can use that improves our metabolism. Now, let me hasten to say, is fasting the only thing? No, it's not. So we don't want to promote fasting as though it is the only thing that rights metabolism. In fact, walking through the health action plan, every single piece of those plans, every pillar that's in there, all of them are designed to give you some benefit when it comes to metabolism. But fasting is a powerful one. And so when we fast, what we're doing is we are doing three things. One, we're decreasing insulin, we're suppressing our appetite, and we're reducing sugar. That's the push. Now, there are lots of other things that fasting gives, and we've done shows where we talk about those, but those are the three that I want you to concentrate on. Decreasing insulin, suppressing appetite, and reducing sugar. Because ultimately, insulin is the culprit. It's the first domino that begins causing the problem downstream. And so on a weekly basis, we go through and we talk about, if we're going to use this tool of fasting, we've got to understand how it works, what it does, when to use it, what are the benefits that we should get, how to prepare for it, how to get through it, and then how, of course, to break the fast. And so that's where you are right now, as we discuss how we get through that process. So let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's talk about it. So fasting review. What do we need to know? What do we need to know when it comes to fasting? And that's where we want to spend our time. Fasting helps to right the metabolism by decreasing insulin. Remember, insulin is one of those hormones in the body that functions to help us regulate blood sugar. It is the primary hormone, in fact. And so insulin itself is not bad. Let me pause there for a minute, because often we've demonized insulin as a bad thing. Insulin does what it's supposed to do. Insulin functions to lower blood sugar. Insulin functions to help us store energy if we need it. That's insulin's function. It is when insulin is too high or too much that it causes a problem. I often tell people it's kind of like having a car, right? I used to live in the cold, and I would come out and turn the engine, turn the key, and the car wouldn't start. You get that sound, right? And you hit the gas a couple of times, and then boom, it starts up. Well, what happens if you hit the gas one too many times? Well, you flood the carburetor. Now, the gas that's in the car is fine. As a matter of fact, the car is fine. But what happened? We put too much gas in the carburetor because we hit it one too many times. And that's what's going on in the body, right? The insulin is doing its job, but too much insulin causes a problem. And once we get too much insulin, then the too much insulin, because it's dysfunctional, does not help to regulate sugar, so blood sugar goes up. And then we get into the cycle, because then now the body has to make more insulin. And then we go higher in the blood sugar. And it's just a vicious cycle. So fasting, one of the things it does is does that. And when we are able to do that, when we're able to decrease our insulin, several things begin happening, because insulin is a storage hormone, meaning that insulin puts on weight. So when we eat, if insulin is on board, insulin says, okay, go store that. And automatically, right, our weight begins going up because there's too much insulin. Insulin can stimulate the appetite. Yep. So not only am I storing the stuff I'm eating, but now I'm more hungry. My appetite has gone up, so I'm eating more. And the weight goes up. So people will say to me, man, I was fine until I ate, and they'll name whatever it is. And as soon as I hear the thing that they ate, and they'll say to me afterwards, and then I was just like ravenous. I couldn't stop eating. And as soon as they tell me what they ate, I say, okay, I get it now. Because the thing that you ate caused the blood sugar to go up. The blood sugar goes up, and that requires insulin. Insulin comes out, and once insulin is there, my appetite's stimulated. Okay? So we want to make sure that we understand that process. So when we're fasting, we're decreasing the amount of insulin that's there. Because now the body I'm not putting anything in, so the body is not forced to produce insulin to bring the blood sugar down. So I'm fasting. I'm not putting anything in. No calories, no carbs, no sugar, nothing's going in. So insulin, the insulin that's on board, has the ability now to work on the sugar that's already there. The amount of insulin that I have now gets to work on the sugar that's there. I don't have to produce more because I keep eating. And so my insulin level begins dropping. That means that my appetite goes down, because remember, insulin is an appetite stimulant. So my appetite gets better. And if my appetite gets better, then I don't eat that much. And when I don't eat that much, I'm not eating sugar. So now the sugar goes down. So decreasing insulin, suppressing the appetite, reducing sugar. So fasting. What do we need to know? So that's it. And so how do we prepare for the fast? Preparing for the fast is very important, and when we talk about fasting, I talk about how to prepare, how to get through the fast, and of course, how to break the fast effectively. And we're going to spend some time talking about one of the most important, and you've heard me say this before, it is the preparation. There are three things that are on our minds when we think about fasting, and they must be when we think about preparing for the fast. How do we prepare physically, mentally, and emotionally? Physically, mentally, and emotionally. And we've spent time talking about the physical, the things that you eat, getting good rest, getting good drinking water to make sure you're staying hydrated. We've talked about the mental, because the mental idea, or the mental thoughts, how you think about things, the lenses through which you see life, will affect what happens during the fast. But today I want to spend my time talking in this area, talking specifically about the emotions. How do we prepare emotionally? And that's a big one, because the things that will cause us issues when it comes to the emotion has to do with 4 different areas. They are the things that push our buttons, and this is given by our heat model. Don't press that button. The heat model says that there are certain things in our lives that will push our buttons and will try and attempt to push us off of our routine. And they're given by and they're coming 4 different areas: habits, emotions, access, and taste. Habits, emotions, access, and taste. The habits that we've gotten into, the routines that we've gotten into, that are, we eat because we go to the to the movies. All right, we get popcorn. You may have just finished eating at home, but because you go to the movies, it is built in. That's what we do. Somebody comes to visit us at the house, and what do? We go and we offer them something. We sit and we eat with them. We eat when we get pregnant. We eat when we have a shower. We eat when the baby's born. We eat when the baby's blessed or christened. We eat at birthdays. We eat at weddings. We eat at funerals. We eat when people get sick. Right? We eat all the time, because that's what we do. We've been socialized to eat. Now, let me hasten to say right here, there's nothing wrong with eating for those functions. There's nothing wrong with it. You simply have to understand how it affects your body. Like if you had 10 parties today, you probably shouldn't eat at every party, eat all the cake. Although going to a party and eating cake is not wrong, if you got 10 parties, you've got to now decide, well, I can't have as big a piece at all 3 parties or all 10 parties. That's a lot of parties, by the way, for one day. You get the idea? So it's not that it's wrong, and it's not that it's wrong when you go to the movies to eat popcorn. You just have to understand what happens in your body when you eat the popcorn, and understand now you've got to regulate how you are going to manage the rest of your food. So if you know you're going to the movies, you're going to have popcorn, then maybe there's something you don't have for dinner. But what we do is we have the complete dinner, and then on top of that, we have the popcorn. right? That whole idea of whole idea of snacking, and that's a whole nother conversation, right? So we eat because of habits. We eat because of emotions. When we get too whatever, too angry, too lonely, too name it. And when that happens, our body is going to make us eat because cortisol comes out, and cortisol, its job is to get energy, and energy in the body is sugar. Blood sugar rises. We eat because of access. Things are just around us. And I've got to be careful, right? So one of my non-negotiables, right? So I don't bring certain things in the house, because if I bring them, guess what? I'm going to eat them. And so preparing for the fast means understanding what are the buttons that can be pushed and having a mechanism that allows you to meander and navigate through those. Because guess what? They're going to come. And because during the fasting, you are not using food as a buffer anymore. Because normally, we get upset, we go get some food. We get angry, we go get some food. We get sad, we go get some food. We get anxious, we go get some food. But guess what? You're not using food anymore because you're fasting. So those things that come that normally seem like, okay, they get better because I go get something to eat, you're working right now without the food as your net, as your support. And so the question is, what do you have in place? What mechanism do you have in place that's going to help you deal with all of those? So preparing for the fast, notice that has nothing to do with what you're going to eat. Because fasting is not simply not eating food. Fasting is, of course, that, but it also is a mental, it's a social, it's an emotional, you go through that list. And so making sure that we are doing all that we can in preparation emotionally is important. This is where, going back to the physical, this is where getting good rest comes into play. So the things that you do that help you emotionally are very important now. So getting good rest is important. Making sure that you're taking time for relaxation is important. Having a good pause, right? COPE. So clarify, observe, pause, execute. That framework that we use, right? What are the things that you're going to stick your hand in your bag and pull out as a tool when you get upset? You're going to count. You're going to breathe. You're going to do box breathing, right? What are you going to do? You're going to count to 10. You're going to go for a walk. You're going to go do some strength training. What is the thing that you have in place? Also, this is where, going back to the physical, the things that you eat. If you're eating well in your non-fasting window, then your body has the nutrients, it has the vitamins, it has the appropriate amount of nutrition to help you get through things emotionally when you're fasting. But if we're not doing that there, then emotionally it shows up. You get more anxious or you get more irritable when you've not rested. People say to you, "Oh, you need to go get some sleep." Or you need to take a break. Why? Because they realize the connection with how you're behaving and the fact that you haven't been sleeping, and the fact that you've been stressed, and the fact that whatever the emotion is. So being sure that we are doing what we need to do emotionally, very important. Okay? So when we talk about fasting, preparing for the fast, that's a part of it. That's a huge part of it. And we normally talk about physical, mental, emotionally, how you eat, but I wanted to spend some time here talking about the emotional. And then when we talk about fasting, not just how do we get into the fast, or in other words, prepare for the fast, but also now how do we get through the fast successfully, and then ultimately how do we break the fast? So successful fast. How do we fast successfully? And here when we talk about fasting successfully, it's important to understand how the body works during fasting. And so I want to go through now and talk about what's going on when we talk about different types, different times. And here we're doing a 72-hour fast, but we're going to spend most of our time talking about the first 24 to 30 hours of the fasting. One of the most important things to understand is that when you finish eating, when you stop eating, those first 4 to 6 hours is technically not called fasting. Yeah, that's called the postprandial period. In other words, your body simply now is processing all the stuff that you ate. It's like going to the grocery store and you come home, you've got a bag full of stuff, and you're just taking those bags and or the things in there, you're putting some in the refrigerator, the eggs, you're putting something in the pantry, maybe those cans. You're taking something and putting it in the bathroom, maybe some toilet tissue. You got some soap, you put it in the washroom. So what you're doing is you're just simply taking the stuff you brought home and you're sorting it into the places they need to go. You're not eating it, you're not using it, you're just putting it away. And that's what's going on here when you are in the postprandial period. The body is breaking down the food and is putting it where it needs to go. That's it. Now, one important thing here is the foods that we eat can affect how much energy the body has to use to sort things. Because imagine you come home and you bought, I don't know, a 50-pound bag of rice, right? And you got to get it from the car into the pantry. Well, it takes more energy to take it from the car to the pantry, as opposed to going and buying like a 2, 3, 4, 5-pound bag. Right, that one you just pick up and you take it. There's not much energy. So the foods that we eat have a thermic effect. So the types of foods we eat can affect how much energy the body has to use to break the food down and to sort it. And hence, right, come on, here it is. The foods that we eat themselves can help us burn calories. Oh. Okay, so coming into the fast, right, is important. Once again, going back to the preparation, it's important what we eat as we get into the fast. Awesome. So when we talk about fasting, the first 24 hours or first 4 to 6 hours, not technically called fasting, but called the postprandial period. And then the next 6 to 12 hours called early fasting. And in this case, the insulin levels are high because the sugar is high. Right, the body, all the stuff that you brought home is still there, right? So you haven't used it up yet. And then as we get through the course of these 12 hours, our body begins now to use up the sugar and the food that it got, and so insulin levels begin dropping. But in this case, the insulin levels are high, and then they start going down. As the sugars drop, glycogenolysis is happening. So the body's storing stuff in the the body's breaking down this stuff now from the liver. So we've put it up, and now we're getting ready to cook. So now we got to go to the refrigerator and take a couple of eggs out. We got to go to the pantry and get a can out. We got to go get the skillet. We got to get the spoon. We got to get the seasonings. All of that's going on, and that's what's happening right now. We've already processed it during the postprandial period, and now we're pulling it back out. Okay, awesome. And then the next section is our 12 to 18 hours. And so we're transitioning now to burning fat. So the body's into the process of burning fat. Glucose levels continue to go down. Insulin levels continue to go down. And we're seeing ketones, y'all. Because remember, insulin and ketones can't be in the same space for long. So we're seeing ketones now. And then we've got our 18 to 24 hours. We've got ketosis that's going on, and then fat adaptation. So my body now is significantly in the fat burning. And so notice it takes about 18 to 24 hours to 36 hours for the glycogen to go away. Now, depending on what you ate, your body gets to that process faster. So if you come into a fast and you've been eating ice cream, cookies, candies, and cake, your blood sugar is going to be higher, which means your insulin is going to be higher, which means the body has to take more time to bring it down so you don't get into ketosis as soon as you think. Okay, so remember that. And then, so that's the fasting. That's what's going on in fasting. In fasting, you want to make sure that you are well rested, that you are hydrated, and that you are aware of your emotional triggers, because they will affect what happens later on. Okay? So preparing for the fast, getting through the fast, understanding what's going on in our bodies, and then of course breaking the fast, right? So how do we break the fast? What's going on there? Because that's the third component of what we're doing. And for this, let's go ahead. I'm going to grab my plate because I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. And you get to see what's going on here for the first time. Let's do this. All right, so here's my meal. And it is, of course, a salad. Now, this is jerk chicken. Now, we talked about jerk chicken before, but this is jerk chicken that I made. Okay? And then I've got some salad dressing here. And this is kind of a throwback to one of our community members recommended a salad, and so there are components to that. And then another community member recommended something else, and so there are some throwbacks to that. Now, Cornelia, I did not do jerk salmon, but it's jerk chicken. So let's walk through this, and let's talk specifically as we do this about balanced bites, because this will help us in our conversation. So balanced bites is not a diet. It's not a list of foods to eat and not eat. It's simply a way of thinking about food, and the thinking about food in a way that's going to help us be successful when it comes to eating, right? This is not specific to, okay, I'm going to eat this way when I start my fast. I'm going to eat this way when I end my fast. This is simply the way you think about food all the time. So whole foods, minimize processing, no added sugar, lean protein and healthy snacks, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, tasty, flavorful, and you should have good portions. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So here's my plate. So it's a salad, and I start with a salad because the salad allows me to get some bulk in my stomach. It helps me, sends a signal to my brain. It takes about 20 minutes for that signal to get there, by the way. So if I'm eating fast, then yeah, that doesn't quite work. All right, so whole foods. So the only thing here that's not whole is I've got some feta cheese in there, and I've got some salad dressing, and I've got two kinds. All right, so let's see what I got. This one is, well, both of these from the same brand, but I like ranch, and then this one was recommended by one of our community members. And so whole foods, let's see, minimize processing. Once again, the salad dressing and the cheese will probably be the only things in here that are processed. Lean protein, healthy, no added sugar. And there's no sugar. The salad dressing may have some sugar. Lean protein and healthy fats. So I've got chicken. I've got garbanzo beans. There's actually some peanuts in there, by the way. Yeah, this was. And then healthy fats. I've got avocados. Starchy and non-starchy vegetables. So in here we've got lettuce and we've got cucumbers. So not a lot of starchy vegetables in here. As a matter of fact, none. We said lean protein, healthy fats, starchy, non-starchy. Portion, this is probably a little bigger portion than one portion. But when I was creating it, I was like, okay, I need to do one so you guys can see everything. And then tasty and flavorful. And I haven't eaten it yet, but guess what? I'm anticipating, y'all, that it's going to be good. Okay? So why don't we go ahead and do that right now? So when we think about fasting, breaking the fast, ending the fast, that's where you need to be. Balanced bites. That's the concept. That's what you're doing. And if you follow balanced bites, when you look at your blood sugars, the blood sugars will be reasonable. Because remember, the thing that you eat first, if you eat something that's highly processed, high sugary, your blood sugar is going to go up, insulin's going to come out, and for the next 24, 36 hours, you're going to be craving. So making sure that we're putting the right things in. Let's go ahead and let's get a bite in here, y'all. Let's see, what do we got? That's good, but I do need some dressing. Let's see. Can you guys see that? No? Let's go back over here. So I'm just, this was the Tuscan something. Get some of that on there. And let's get the other one. And this is a buttermilk ranch. Buttermilk ranch. It's not the usual brand that I use, but hey, we got some here. So let's go ahead and drizzle just a little bit of that on top, because I love the richness. And one of the things I love about salads is I love the flavors and the textures, and right. So the crunchy, the soft, the savory. All right. So I'm doing the avocado first. Let's get this off here. So good, so good, so good. The crunchiness of the peanuts, the garbanzo beans. Oh man. That is very good. And so when we talk about fasting and ending the fast, just a couple of tips that I want you to have. In addition to balanced bites, and it looks like my camera just went out. Just give me just a sec. Take a look at this one. All right. And let's see. There we are. Boom. Okay. And so when we talk about balanced bites, in addition to balanced bites, as I was saying, is we want you to remember that you want to make sure that you are monitoring your blood sugars. Very important to see what's going on in your body. We want to make sure that you're having the appropriate portions, because sometimes it's not that people are eating the wrong things, but they're eating too much, right? So portion sizes are huge. Eating slowly, because we said that it takes about 20 minutes for the signal to get to your brain that you're full, and making sure that you're avoiding highly processed sugary foods, because that will spike the blood sugar. And when you spike the blood sugar, then the insulin has to come out, okay? So make sure that you are following those. And that is how we fast, how to prepare for the fast, how do we get through the fast successfully and what's going on, and then, of course, how we break the fast. All right, so that is our fasting, y'all. That's what we're doing. That is the goal. How do we use fasting successfully for our metabolism? This is so good. I had to get some more. All right. So let's go ahead and let's say hello to some of our community members. Let's see. Anthony says hi. Hey. Cornelia says yum. Yeah, Cornelia, that was good. It was delicious. I loved it. So I'm loving it. So y'all, everything that we do is based on our Triple E formula for success. Remember, educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the blogs, with the shows, with the podcast. We empower with the tools that we're using, and we encourage with the community that you are part of. When you show up and you're getting results, don't just keep it to yourself. You've got to help improve the community at large around you, because this is a huge problem around the world, around the globe. There are right now over 1 billion people, billion with a B, that suffer from either diabetes or pre-diabetes. That's huge. And that doesn't include all the other metabolic diseases. So we'll make sure that we're doing what we can to help everyone. and I'm always excited when I get to hang out with you. We'll be back tomorrow with a video from the vault on 9 p.m. Central. On Sunday, we'll be back for This Week in Review at 6 a.m. Central here on the channel. And then on Monday at 7 p.m. Central, back for our Dwain Woode MD Live as we continue our playing strong and finishing strong as we go through this bridge as we get ready for our Blueprint series that's coming up in just a little while. Well, hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with us. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, go to the next level. We're creating the life we've always wanted, and we are living limitless lives. Now go live a limitless life, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye, everybody.